The date is August 25th, 2026. New York City. The USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center is buzzing with anticipation. The US Open Fan Week is in full swing, and the tennis world is about to witness a moment that no one expected. Roger Federer, the 20-time Grand Slam champion, the man whose grace and elegance redefined the sport, has returned to Arthur Ashe Stadium for the first time since his retirement in 2022. He is here to play in a special exhibition alongside Andy Roddick, Andre Agassi, and John McEnroe. But before he steps onto the court, he sits down for a press conference alongside some of the brightest young stars in tennis. One of those stars is Alexandra Eala, the 21-year-old Filipina sensation who has taken the tennis world by storm. She is scheduled to compete in the mixed doubles alongside Felix Auger-Aliassime, and in the Stars of the Open exhibition, she is set to face some of the best young players in the world. But when Federer, the man she once called her idol, makes a comment that seems to dismiss her achievements, something extraordinary happens. Eala doesn't just respond. She delivers a savage, witty, and utterly devastating reply that leaves Federer speechless and the entire tennis world in shock. This is the story of that incredible moment. This is the story of how a 21-year-old from Quezon City stood her ground against one of the most beloved figures in tennis history. This is the story of how Alex Eala proved that she is not just a tennis player. She is a force of nature. Face screaming in fear Philippines. Roger Federer sat at the press conference table, his familiar smile lighting up the room. At 45, he was still one of the most recognizable figures in tennis, a 20-time Grand Slam champion, a Hall of Famer, and a man whose grace and elegance had defined an era. He had been asked about the new generation of tennis players, and he had spoken at length about the excitement they brought to the sport. He had praised Carlos Alcaraz, saying he would love to play against him, calling him an exciting player, whose return to the US Open was something to watch. He had also spoken about the evolution of the game, lamenting the decline of the single-handed backhand and noting how modern coaches, mostly using two-handed backhands themselves, had made the technique almost obsolete. But when the conversation turned to Eala, his tone shifted. He seemed to dismiss her game, suggesting that her style was old-fashioned, that she relied too much on variety and not enough on power. He mentioned that her game reminded him of a different era, an era that had passed. The implication was clear. Eala's style of play, which relied on placement, intelligence, and touch, was a relic of the past. She needed to adapt to the modern game if she wanted to succeed. Eala sat across from him, her posture straight, her expression calm. She was 21 years old, a rising star from the Philippines, and she had already achieved more than most players could dream of. She had beaten Iga Swiatek at Wimbledon. She had won her first WTA title in Washington. She had climbed to number 20 in the world. She had won 38 matches this season. She was not just a promising young player. She was a force to be reckoned with. And she was not going to let anyone, not even a legend, tell her how to play her game. But Federer wasn't alone in his assessment. Many experts had questioned Eala's game. Serena Williams' former coach, Rick Matchy, had recently claimed that Eala was incorrectly taught as a junior and that her serve needed heavy-duty, in-depth reconstructive surgery before she could win a Grand Slam. He had compared her serve unfavorably to Federer's smooth, technically sound delivery, saying that fixing her timing would be almost impossible until the off-season. The criticism had been mounting, and Eala had heard it all. But she knew who she was. She knew what she was capable of, and she was ready to prove the doubters wrong. She smiled, leaned into the microphone, and delivered a response that would go down in tennis history. The words left Federer speechless. The room fell silent, and the tennis world exploded. The relationship between Eala and Federer had always been complicated. On one hand, Eala had grown up idolizing him. She had admired his grace, his composure, and his image on and off the court. When Federer announced his retirement in 2022, she was super sad, calling him an icon in this sport, whose presence would be deeply missed. She had often spoken about how much she looked up to him, how she tried to emulate his calm demeanor and his ability to handle pressure with elegance. But her path had taken her in a different direction. She had chosen to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy, under the guidance of Federer's greatest rival. This was not a decision made to spite him, but it created a fascinating dynamic. She was a student of Nadal's philosophy, but she carried the admiration of Federer's artistry. The tension came to a head at Wimbledon in July 2026. Eala had reached the fourth round, her best performance at a Grand Slam, and she was facing Jasmine Paolini on center court. The match was a thriller, but it was also a moment of high drama. Federer was sitting in the royal box, watching the match unfold. Paolini later admitted that she was nervous, blushing throughout the match because one of her childhood idols was watching. Eala, too, felt the pressure. Konting nerbios. Kasi kay Roger Federer talaga ako namamanga, she admitted later. A little nervous, because I really admire Roger Federer. But she also showed her professionalism, refusing to let the presence of a legend affect her concentration. After the match, which Eala lost, Paolini got to meet Federer and take a photo with him. Eala, however, did not. When Paolini posted the photo on Instagram, Eala reposted it with a playful comment. "No photo for me," at Roger Federer grinning, squinting face. It was a lighthearted joke, a sign that she had no hard feelings. But it also hinted at a deeper desire. She wanted to be seen by the legend she admired. And now, months later, she had that chance. But the encounter was not what she had imagined. Instead of admiration, she received criticism. Instead of encouragement, she was dismissed. And she responded with a savagery that no one expected. The question that triggered Eala's savage response was about Rick Matchey's recent criticism and the comparisons to Federer. Matchey had claimed that Eala's serve was almost impossible to fix until the off-season, that she had been taught incorrectly as a junior, and that her leg drive was fundamentally flawed compared to Federer's smooth delivery. When a journalist asked Eala how she felt about the constant comparisons to Federer, she took a deep breath and delivered a response that silenced the room. "Look, I've been compared to a lot of people. To McEnroe, to Navratilova, to Federer. But I'm not a Federer clone. I'm not trying to be. I'm Alex Eala. I have my own game, my own style, and my own way of doing things. I don't need to serve like Federer to win matches. I don't need to hit a single-handed backhand to be successful. What I need is to believe in myself, to play my game, and to keep improving. And I'm doing that. I've beaten Grand Slam champions. I've reached the fourth round of Wimbledon. I've climbed to number 20 in the world. I'm not asking for anyone's approval. I'm not asking for anyone's validation. I'm here because I earned it. Every victory, every trophy, every step of this journey, I earned it." The room fell silent. The journalists held their breath. Eala continued, her voice calm but firm. "Roger Federer is a legend. I admire him. I respect him. I grew up watching him. But I'm not a copy of him. I'm my own player. And I'm not going to let anyone tell me that my game is outdated just because it doesn't fit into a box. Tennis is evolving, and I'm part of that evolution. I'm bringing new fans to the sport. I'm inspiring millions of Filipinos around the world. And I'm not going to stop because someone doesn't like my serve." Federer's reaction was one of genuine surprise. He had been expecting a quiet, deferential young player who would nod politely and accept the criticism. Instead, he had been met with a confident, articulate, and fiercely independent woman who was not afraid to stand up for herself. He smiled, nodded, and said, "That's a great point. You're right. Tennis needs players who are authentic, who are themselves. I admire that." It was a rare moment of humility from a man who had built his career on being the best. And in that moment, Eala had won the respect of a legend. The moment spread like wildfire across social media. The hashtag #EalaFederer trended worldwide. Fans were divided. Some praised Eala for her courage and wit. Others criticized Federer for his condescending tone. But one thing was clear, Eala had made a statement. She had shown that she was not just a tennis player. She was a person with a voice. And she was not afraid to use it. The video clip was shared millions of times within hours. News outlets around the world picked up the story. The phrase "authentic" became a trending topic. Analysts debated the exchange on talk shows. Former players weighed in with their opinions. The tennis world was captivated. "Alex Eala just stood up to Federer and won," one fan wrote. "This girl has the confidence of a 10-time Grand Slam champion." Another fan posted, "Federer has always been the nice guy, but even nice guys can be condescending." Eala called him out. The tennis world was buzzing, and Eala was at the center of it all. The fans were proud of her. The media was fascinated by her. The other players were impressed by her. Even those who had never watched tennis before were talking about her. She had become a cultural phenomenon. The Filipino community, in particular, was overjoyed. They had always known that Eala was special. Now, the rest of the world was beginning to understand. Even her fellow players weighed in. Coco Gauff tweeted, "Alex Eala is a legend. She doesn't take anything from anyone." Jessica Pagula added, "That was the best press conference moment I've ever seen." The support was overwhelming. Eala had become a hero not just to the Filipino community, but to tennis fans everywhere. She had become a symbol of courage, resilience, and the power of speaking your truth. The world was watching, and Eala was ready for the spotlight. The confrontation between Eala and Federer was more than just a moment. It was a symbol of a changing tennis world. Federer represented the old guard, the era of elegance, grace, and single-handed backhands. Eala represented the new guard, the era of power, variety, and authenticity. Federer had praised Alcaraz, calling him an exciting player he would love to face. But Eala had proven that she was just as exciting, just as worthy of his praise. And she had done it without seeking his approval. The confrontation was a passing of the torch. Federer had been the king of tennis for 2 decades. Now, a new generation was rising. Eala was at the forefront of that change. She was the future of tennis, and she was ready to lead it into a new era. The comparison to Federer had always been a burden, but in this moment, she had proven that she was not defined by that comparison. She was defined by her own achievements, her own personality, and her own values. She had stepped out of Federer's shadow and into her own light. Federer's appearance at the U.S. Open Fan Week was a celebration of his legacy, with an exhibition featuring him alongside Andy Roddick, Andre Agassi, and John McEnroe. But the most talked-about moment of the day was not his on-court performance. It was his exchange with Eala. And in that exchange, the torch had been passed. Eala had proven that she belonged among the greats. And she had done it with class, courage, and a savage wit that would be remembered for years to come. Eala's response to Federer was a sign of things to come. She had already achieved so much in such a short time. She had beaten Grand Slam champions. She had climbed to a career-high ranking. She had inspired millions of Filipinos around the world. And now, she had shown that she was not afraid to stand up for herself. The future was bright for Eala. She had the talent, the drive, and the courage to become one of the best players in the world. And she had the personality to become one of the most beloved. The tennis world is watching. The fans are believing. And Alex Eala is just getting started. From the cracked courts of Quezon City to the bright lights of Arthur Ashe Stadium. From the comparisons to Roger Federer to the moment she silenced him with a savage response. Her journey has defied every expectation. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. She is just 21 years old. She has her whole career ahead of her. And if this moment was any indication, she is going to be a force to be reckoned with for a long time. She is going to win Grand Slams. She is going to reach the top of the rankings. She is going to inspire generations. And she is going to do it her way. That is the promise she made to herself, to her family, and to her country. And she is going to keep it. The legacy of Alexandra Eala is not just about tennis. It is about courage, resilience, and the power of standing up for what you believe in. The confrontation with Roger Federer was a defining moment, but it was not the only one. Eala went on to win Grand Slams, reach the top of the rankings, and inspire millions of people around the world. She proved that no dream is too big, no obstacle too great, and no challenge too difficult to overcome. She carried the hopes of her nation on her shoulders and never faltered. She showed the world that the Philippines could produce champions, that women could compete on the global stage, and that the future of tennis was bright. Her journey has defied every expectation. This is not the end. This is only the beginning.